Hello, this is Stuart Roberts, founder of Haircuts for Homeless, and welcome to the Hear Me, See Me podcast. I'm going to be talking to people who are truly inspirational to me. Some you may have heard of, and some you haven't, but you really need to hear their story. Hello, this is Stuart Roberts from Hear Me, See Me podcast, and I've got a wonderful guest. I've been trying to get her for a long time. She's a busy lady. Today I've got Rachel Williams. How are you?
Yeah, good, Stuart. Yeah, I can't believe we're in May already.
I know, it's flown. Right, before I get into anything, I want to just do, because I had to make a note, because you're a busy lady. I thought I was busy, so I read this. Right, Rachel Williams is the founder of Stand Up to Domestic Abuse. You're the co-creator of the project Titanium. You're the co-creator of the Voice program. You're the ambassador for Locality Solutions, patron of What Can I Do, winner of St David's Humanitarian Award 2020, and a winner of Crime Fighter of the Year Award 2023. How do you fit it all in?
It looks pretty impressive as a signature.
It's great, isn't it? But but obviously what we're going to talk about is domestic abuse. We're going to talk about your story. So if you don't mind, just go straight into it. And
yeah.
Because
I think it's that I always say domestic abuse and control is an epidemic. I mean, I was saying it, before we had the pandemic with COVID, but it is really an epidemic. And I think until you've experienced it and then you start sort of looking in the paper and picking things out, and then you listen to different podcasts or, see stuff in magazines, that you realise how bad it has become. So this is how I sort of got into doing what I do. I always say I come in ass backwards, basically, through lived experience, not because of a passion for it, finding yourself in a club that you didn't ask to be in, and then all of a sudden you're in it. So I was in an abusive relationship for 18 years. So I met my perpetrator as a single mum. I was 21 and I had a son, Josh. He was 2 at the time. And I met my perpetrator through my neighbour. It was her brother. And I always say to people, nobody chooses to go out with a perpetrator of abuse, and if a perpetrator of abuse slapped you on the first date, you would be a bit of a muppet to go back for a second date. They're very clever. They're very manipulative. There is an end goal for them. It is a game, it's all that grooming process to get you to where they want you. So I met Darren. He was a bodybuilder. He was at the time about 19 stone, 6'7". Thought he was quite charming, extremely funny. He would make you laugh constantly, and I'm all about banter and having a good laugh and having a good crack, so we sort of like progressed and started going out. And then I think there was one moment that I can remember, besides the most significant moment of the abuse, but there was one moment, and had I have known what the red flags were, that would have flagged up as a red flag. He told me about all his childhood. He didn't have a very good childhood, and and this is not something that's not already out there. It's all in the reports that he grew up in a violent household himself. So you've got that element of sort of empathy for somebody, hoping you can fix them. But there was one point that I can remember that I'd made a nice meal. I was waiting for him to come down. I was a single mum, not much money, but I'd made us a nice meal, and he didn't show up. And he just didn't show up. There was no excuse. He's just like, well, didn't fancy it, sort of thing, And there was other sort of red flags as well. But for me, the significant moment really of the abuse where I thought, shitting hell, what are you in? And I was 7 months pregnant with our son, Jack. And I can remember we had an argument, and I can't even recall what he was over, Stuart, if I'm honest with you. But I can remember being up in the bedroom, 7 months pregnant, and, shouting back down the stairs to him as he was hollering up the stairs. And the next thing then I heard him running up the stairs, and he came round the side of the bedroom where I was and basically lifted me up off the floor by my throat. And he released his grip, he told me later, when my lips turned blue. And I can remember then, being in that moment of thinking, what the fucking else just happened, and then him falling on the floor and crying like a baby and apologizing, which is the pattern of behavior, which I now know. And then as an empathetic person, it's all right, it's going to be all right, as you've saying, it's never going to happen again. But of course it does happen again, because the level of power and control go up then. But that was the first significant moment for me of the abuse, and, being a single mum, as I said, at 21. So I was 23 at the time when I had Jack. And I'm just thinking, was I 23 when I had Jack? Yes, I had Josh at 19, yeah. And I remember just thinking, I don't want to be a single mum of two toddlers, basically. So, you do everything you can to sort of make it work. And then over the years, looking back now through professional lenses, because I do a lot in the domestic abuse arena, I didn't know what coercion was, even 3 years after the main event, which I'll lead up to in a minute. Coercive controlling behavior, somebody doesn't just come into your life and start sort of, banging out the orders. I knew my relationship wasn't a good relationship. I knew it was abusive, in terms of, I used to think, he's got problems, he got issues, we'll work through it, we'll get him out. He was on antidepressant tablets, and his brother had took his life through suicide 4 years prior to me meeting him. So I'm thinking he's extremely messed up sort of individual, but it's all right, we're going to work through it, sort of thing. But, like I said, I knew my relationship wasn't a good one. But, if somebody had asked me if I was being abused, I'd have probably said no, because I didn't really know what abuse was. But I knew my relationship was all geared around Darren and what Darren wanted and what was going to make Darren happy. So as I talk about coercion now, and I say to a lot of victims and survivors who do contact me, and they say to me, I don't think I'm being abused because the perpetrators never hit me. And then I will turn around and say that, yes, they've never hit you because you're adhering to the rules and regulations, the terms and conditions of that relationship. And how I explain it is that, you get with a perpetrator unknowingly he's a perpetrator, and then all of a sudden you have these rules and regulations, the terms and conditions slowly seeped into your relationship, and then something might happen and you don't know these terms and conditions are in place until you breach one. And then what happens then? There's a consequence. And that might not be a slap or a punch or a kick or a hair pull. That could be something as, somebody just not speaking to you for the next 24 hours and totally ignoring you. And then you think to yourself, well, I'm not going to do that again because it really upset him. So then you start changing your behavior to suit that perpetrator. And then before you know it, then you just become an extension of their will. You're just doing what you're told, and anything for an easy life, not to upset him. So, as if things progress, I remember getting older and thinking I can't stand, living like this. And when the kids are a bit older, and 18 years I was existing in this environment for. And I think what topped it for me, where I really thought I am gonna have to think about leaving, was we'd gone on holiday with friends of ours who were older than us, and Darren used to work with this one guy and got on very well with both of them. And they'd seen a couple of outbursts over the years with Darren when we went to Prague one time, and Poland. So they'd seen stuff. And then we'd gone on holiday with them to Tenerife. So they had this a week somewhere where they could stay in this timeshare. It's basically somebody trying to flog them a timeshare. And they said, come and stay with us, but you'll have to sleep on the sofa bed. So I was like, oh, that'd be great. So again, there was an argument that happened, and it was normally Darren would cause the arguments. And I can remember saying to my friend Anne, I said, I'm going to go down on the beach. I said, because he's really kicking off. So off I went on the beach, and he's effing and jeffing, the spit of the froth at the sides of the mouth. So I went down to the beach and just remember sitting on the sun lounger and thinking, I just can't do this anymore. And I was 39, I think, at the time, and just thinking, I can't do this anymore. How much longer, And then as I looked to the left of me, I could see him storming across the beach. And at this point now, he was 22 stone. He was well into bodybuilding, well into the steroids, popping the anabolic steroids and growth hormone and all the rest. What's the other one? Something beginning with D, like Dianabol or something like that. And I can see him stomping over the sand. And the usual thing was, the tension build up. There's an incident, there will be an assault of some description. Then the perpetrator will become remorseful and sorry. And then you forgive them. Then they go back to the same place again. So I'm thinking, right, he's going to come over and apologize. This is the usual now. So I sort of looked at him, but it was different this time because he never apologized for his actions. He just said, give me some effing money, and ripped my purse out of my hand and threw a load of sand in my face. And at that point then I thought, this has changed, because this is not what normally happens. It's normally the remorsefulness. Then he's nice for a couple of days, a week or so. Then he goes back to the same place again. And then I thought, that is it. I got to start planning. And then we came home, still got in the back of my head, I don't want to do this anymore. I can't be existing in this environment, Josh was 20, Jack was 16. And then I can remember the next significant incident. So this was in the June. And then the 9th of July, there was another argument, and I got up. There was stuff that happened on the Friday night. He went up and stayed with his sister and came back early hours of the morning. And I got up to go and do a lady's hair for a wedding. And I can remember getting up and creeping downstairs, knowing he was in the house downstairs and he was asleep on the sofa. So I thought, anyway, I went out the kitchen, started boiling the kettle, and I can remember looking out the back door and tears were streaming down my face, and I thought, I can't do this anymore. And then with that, then the next thing I heard him moving, and then I could felt him breathing down my neck. And he said, in his words, oh, well, what are you going to fucking do about it? And I said, you know what? I said, I'm going to leave because I've had an absolute gut full of you. And as I walked through the kitchen into the living room, his hands went round my neck and he started strangling me really ferociously. And I must have been making a noise like a pig, because it woke my boys up. Both of them come running down the stairs. Jack had a baseball bat in his hand and Josh was doing a silent 999 call. And he was on top of me on the floor. But as soon as he seen the kids in there, he let go, then burst out crying, wanting to play the victim again. So I'm just thinking, wow, feeling like my head's just been, my neck snapped, and, because he was proper strangling and really ferociously. Then the next thing that I can remember, the kids basically going back up to their rooms, and then Darren sort of trying to drag me up the stairs. But I knew what he was going to do, and victims and survivors know their perpetrators better than anybody. And I always say this when I deliver police training. And I thought he's going to turn himself into a proper victim now, because he's done this. The kids have seen it, strangled me, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, as he's pulling me into the bedroom, I knew he was going to the drawer to get a knife out. Now, Darren used to do a lot of hunting. He used to badger bait, fox bait, he was cruel to animals, big, massive red flag. I later found out, So he had all the hunting knives and everything, telescopic truncheons, CS gas, you name it, he had it. And over the bridging unit of his bed was all books on crime, the craze, Donnie Brasco, Al Capone, all that. He fantasized about being in a gang back in the 60s. So he was reaching in the drawer to get this knife out. And I knew what it was for. To harm himself, because he wanted to be the victim then, because now I am really sort of in full victim mode, and as he pulled out the knife, and I said, and then Jack came out of the bedroom on the landing and he said, what's he doing? I said, go on, slit your wrist in front of your 16-year-old son, thinking I was going to shame him and he's going to put it back in the drawer. But by the time I walked out of the bedroom, got to the bottom of the stairs, Jack said, oh my God, Mummy's done it. And at that point then, the fear of staying with him became greater than the fear of leaving him. And that was when that light switch went off. So Jack had phoned for an ambulance, who then in turn phoned the police, because obviously this has happened in the house. the police arrived before the ambulance, and I can remember Jack opening the door. Now I'm sat in the conservatory with my dressing gown on, all welt marks around my neck, visibly not right. And I could see these two police officers, young officers, run up the stairs to Darren. Then I could hear Darren shouting, "Get out my fucking house." And then I hear from the police officers. They came into the conservatory and they said, "Is everything all right?" And I said, like that. And off they went. At that point then I thought, shit, you are really on your own here to deal with this. So then the ambulance came, and then he was playing victim. The ambulance man said, "Was that your wife?" He said, "Well, I don't think it's my wife anymore. You're not my wife anymore." Crying, for that sympathy and everything else. And then he went up his sister's for a couple of days. I'd gone to the solicitor, filed for divorce, and then he ramped it up because he was losing that power and control. The constant phone calls, trying to play with your emotional strings as they do. He knew that I'd filed for divorce, and then there was a 6-week period where I'd gone into the police station. I finally gave a statement. So the big rule breaks for a victim of abuse is the top rule break is you never phone the police. And the second rule break is you never give a statement. And the third one, you never go to court. I was doing the second one, giving a statement, which was 18 pages long historical statement. Darren broke into the house when I got married. He bleached all my clothes. It was failed to be picked up on stalking. I'd be phoning the police and I'd be saying he sat outside my place of work again, outside the hair salon, because he had a very distinctive Land Rover, sat outside just staring in. And I'm phoning the police and they're like, "Well, is he doing anything?" I said, "Well, no, he's just been there for an hour." And they said, "Well, he's not really breaking the law." Thank God that has changed now, and they've had the training that was desperately needed. So I'm thinking I'm a little bit of a nuisance. Then the 18th of August, so he was actually charged and it wasn't non-fatal strangulation, sorry, it was common assault for the strangulation, hence why I pushed so bad to get non-fatal strangulation as a standalone offence on the statute, but with a couple of other organisations. And he was charged with common assault. Anyway, he'd gone to court and he had bail restrictions. This was on, I think, the 12th of August. Then the 18th of August, this was in 2011, the 18th of August, then he went back to court to have his bail restrictions lifted. Bearing in mind, he breached his bail restrictions the very next day. And I was phoning the police and telling them about these breaches. Nothing was done. So then he had all his bail restrictions lifted, except the one which was he couldn't actually drive into our drive. So where we lived at the time, you went up the top of the hill, you turned left, there was an entrance into an estate which went round full circle. So basically they said he couldn't enter the estate, but he could sit on the mouth of the estate and watch me come and go, so that was absolute waste of time. Then the 18th of August, when these bail restrictions were lifted, I had a phone call from the police saying, "We want to come to your house to put a panic room in." And I'm like, okay, didn't know what that entailed. Here come the local Bobby van scheme, as they were known then. So they came to the house, they reinforced my bedroom door, they double skimmed it both sides, they put 2 metal brackets either side of the door and I had a metal bar. So that was to lock myself in the bedroom at night, just in case he come to the home. So, there was anticipation that something was going to happen. So Friday the 19th of August, I go off to work. I wasn't supposed to be working that day. I was covering a colleague's day off. Beautiful sunny day. I felt like I was getting my life back because that was the day I moved back into the family home, which was on the 18th of August. So I thought, I'm going to get my life back. But I had this awful knot in my stomach and something was blocking me basically from swallowing, and I've never experienced it since. And I can remember going to work and my boss saying to me, "Is everything all right?" And I said, I feel like I'm getting my life back, sort of thing. And then I can remember texting my sister and saying, "I've got a feeling he's gone to have a psychiatric appointment or something," because Darren tried to take a mini overdose like a week before, because he'd lost all power and control. They all threatened to kill themselves. They all might do that sort of pretend, taking a load of tablets, which he took some tablets, not enough to kill him, but enough to become a victim. I said, I think he might have a psychiatric appointment. Can you go and have a look where I thought it was? I said, he'll be in the Land Rover. Anyway, nothing. Then I just finished doing a lady blow dry, and I was at the counter giving her a change back, and all of a sudden the shop went quite dark. Something was blocking the sunlight coming into the shop. And as I looked to the door, Darren's in the doorway now. As he's pushing the door open, he's reaching into a bag that he got with him, and then I can see him pulling out this sawn-off shotgun. I don't know why. My initial thing was running. I ran towards him. We know it's the fight, flight, fear, flop, and friend. Mine was the fight. I don't know whether I subconsciously thought if he came to the shop, what would I do? Because there was no way out, really. He would have just killed me, shot me in the back as I was trying to get out the back. So I ran towards him and started fighting as best I could with him, bearing in mind, a big guy, 6'7" and 22 stone with a 60-inch chest, used to put men in hospital as a doorman, didn't give a shit for anybody. So I'm fighting with him, trying to, get the gun off him. Then I can remember him hitting me with the butt of the gun and me falling on the floor. It was a full shop, busy salon, old ladies under the dryer. There was people sat at the stations having their hair done. I'm on the floor. There was an old lady, Connie. She was on the floor. The reception desk was over. The phone was by me. And I can remember Connie shouting at him, typical war baby. Go on, get out of here, get out of here, she was shouting. Then I can remember tapping the phone, trying to do a 999 call, but feeling extremely weak at that point, because obviously that huge adrenaline rush, as I know now, and then the come down. And then I can remember grabbing the reception desk, trying to pull it over me. And at that point, then he'd kicked that away, and he stood about 3 foot away from me, pointed the gun to my chest. And thank God I pulled my knees up under my chin in a fetal position before, that quick thinking. And he told me he loved me and pulled the trigger. So my left leg took the first blast from this shotgun, and then the second one skimmed past my head. The next thing I can remember then, that there was a gun on the floor, and it was about that long, with silver with ornate engraving on it. I managed to grab the gun. Don't ask me what happened then, but I had a supernatural strength because he could not retrieve the gun from me. And I know it was a case of us battling with the gun, because I'd done an article for the Daily Mail, and I had a watch on that day. It was a white watch, and it's frosted in every direction, the face. So I knew that it was a sort of this going on. Then the next thing, then I can feel him booting me under the chin. He stamped all over my head. Then he was gone. Then I went to hospital. We had armed police at the hospital because we couldn't find him. And one of my neighbours said, you won't find him alive, he will definitely be dead. Because Darren had been to prison before, he wouldn't have gone back to prison. And in his eyes, I think he probably felt that I was either dying or left in a vegetable state. And, I know him well enough to know he would have pre-planned somewhere to kill himself. Then about 7, 8 o'clock at night, I think it was, they said that they'd found him. He took his life. He'd hung from a tree, which was a massive blessing, absolute massive blessing. I didn't think about my leg and my injuries. All I thought about was, you are free. So I was in hospital for 6 weeks. I had numerous operations on my leg. They had to send to America for parts for my leg. And I can remember the nurse saying to me, I've never seen so many parts in an operating theatre before. So I feel a bit like the Bionic Woman, So they saved my leg. And so I came out of hospital then on Friday, the 23rd of September. Bearing in mind, contact with Jack was minimal. He'd gone to stay with Darren's family because obviously he wanted sympathy for his dad's death, even though he knew what he'd done was wrong. Very confused, 16-year-old boy. And the text messages to me were, I'm praying for your leg. Then all of a sudden they became, it's all your fault, Dad's dead. So I knew that the place he wasn't in was good. I phoned up social services from my hospital bed and said, you need to remove him from this environment. I said, he needs to be put somewhere neutral. I said, any counselling that I'm told he's having is being ended the moment he comes out of there because he's back in that environment. I came out of hospital on the Friday, the 23rd of September, with no contact with Jack. He changed his mobile number, couldn't get hold of him. And then I was phoned by the police on the Monday to say, do you know where Jack is? And I said, I've had no contact with him. He'd gone missing. So I managed to get in my sister's car, even though I wasn't supposed to weight bear at all on my legs. I had a big external sort of frame on it. And then we looked everywhere for Jack, came back then to have a phone call to say they just found him dead in the woods, and he actually took his own life. A 16-year-old boy took his life because of one man's actions. And that is why I'm so passionate and I do what I do in the domestic abuse arena.
Wow. I don't know what to say to you. You know, sorry. It never fails to amaze me how cruel people can be. You know, and I constantly see, and I try and hang on to how wonderful people are. You know, but it beggars belief.
Yeah, and I think that is why society now got to take the blinkers off and see domestic abuse and violence for what it is. I mean, if the papers, if the paper started reporting every homicide, because 2 women a week are killed at the hands of an abuser every week, every single week, and stop saying it's a isolated incident, we're not looking for anybody else, just bloody say it's another domestic homicide, another woman is being killed at the hands of male violence, and we know at least 200 women take their own lives to escape an abuser every year, and 10,000 try, but we know that is just the tip of the iceberg, because I went off to kill myself in those 6 weeks, and then something come over me and I just thought, I'm not taking my life because of one asshole.
But not everyone's as strong as you.
No, I know, but I think sometimes when it's only strength that you have got, you got to dig as deep as you can to find that little bit more, because I don't think people understand how strong you are. And I always say, we always talk about victims and survivors, they're a victim in that environment and then they're survivors when they come out. That's bullshit. They're survivors in that environment because they're surviving every day. Every day they wake up, they're thinking, how am I going to pacify my perpetrator today? How am I going to keep myself safe today? How am I going to keep the kids safe today? Blah, blah, blah. It goes on. We're like soldiers in that environment. And I don't think professionals, give credit to victim survivors and the strength they have. And like I say, you have sometimes got to dig that little bit deeper and just think, I'm going to go for it. The light switch has gone off. I'm going to go for it.
Yeah. And the more people out there like yourself who are saying that and are an example of, I did it.
Yeah.
It gives hope to someone who thinks maybe I can do it. Maybe I can do it.
And it is in that, and sometimes hope is all we have. We've got to have that hope, and people say to me, when will I get into a better place? And it's like, listen, everybody's journey is different. Everybody's road's different, That first step forward, is going to be different to somebody else's. But those steps forward, just glimpse back and see how far you've come. Because I always say, the Lord put the eyes in the front of our head for a reason, to look forward, not back. Glimpse back, but you might not be where you want to be yet, but thank God you're not where you used to be, and you're on that right path.
Yeah, and that's one of my favourite sayings. You can look back at the past, but don't stare.
Yeah.
And it's that, and if you've got to keep moving forward, and I've how many times have you heard someone say, like, why didn't you just leave him? I mean, that's the one, isn't it? I think it's one of the most dangerous phrases around.
I get it I've had it from professionals, and I've done training. And when young copper said, but why didn't you just leave? I said, if you're asking me that after listening for 2.5 hours on a training session, you're in the wrong job. And what we should be, I do, And I said, and I do say, at the end of the day, we should be asking, not focusing on the victim survivors, why didn't you just leave? I left when I could. That's why I always say I left when I could. Let's start asking, why is he abusing? Why is that person abusing? Because what happened is, Rachel will leave, but if Dan was still alive, Dan would have gone on to the next victim. You know, and plenty of perpetrators do. Once they know that power and control is lost, you know, and it's like, well, I can't be bothered with them, can't be asked with them no more, I'll look for the next one. We got to be dealing with the perpetrator and stop putting the onus constantly on the victim survivor.
Has it got better?
I think it has, and I got to really say that it has. And I do a lot of training with CPS, with police, you know, with students, with mental health teams, with NHS, you know, teachers, heads of, you know. And I think once they understand, you know, I think they can do a better job, and they've got the tools in their box and they understand it better. But I think while we're expecting professionals who may not have been touched by domestic abuse directly or indirectly, or have that passion for it, you know, they don't care. It's never touched them. It's like with cancer, in it, you know, unless you know somebody is affected, it's like, oh well, that's just cancer. You know, domestic abuse is a cancer.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, it has got better. Laws have certainly changed. You know, people are being held accountable for their dubious, dangerous decisions, you know, within police forces, you know, and then all of a sudden when it came out about perpetrators in the police force, it's like, what, you've finally just, you know, sort of started looking through that looking glass. They're everywhere. They are everywhere. You know, it's not just confined to, you know, Onslow down the road who's drinking 12 cans of beer every night, you know, and going to play darts on a Sunday. This is professional people, you know, judges, magistrates, police officers, doctors, you know. This is anybody in society.
And you said about mental health, and, you know, like, unfortunately, things have improved, but in the mental health field, they haven't.
No.
Because there's just a chronic lack of help for people in desperate need with mental health, and it's going to be you know, victims are going to, or survivors are going to struggle with that, and they're going to reach out for help, and that the help isn't available. I know from my own you know, experience. Like, as I said before we started, you know, I was abused as a child, and it went on and affected me through my life, and, you know, and I've got a much better handle of it, but I've still got this thing occasionally when I suffer badly with my mental health. And you go to the doctor, and they do their best, and then you get put onto talking therapies, and then you phone them and they say, right, we'll put you on touch, and then you have a talk with someone. And then with my case, I had a really bad time last year, and they said to me, yeah, you really do need PTSD therapy. I went, oh, fair enough. When will I? How will I get that? And then they said, well, we'll contact you. You know, and I got a letter not long after. I thought, oh, at least something might be done, you know, because I've got to live with this, you know. And it was like, got that, it should be up to around about 52 weeks. So I thought, you know, and it's a year's time. And then I had a bad time just Christmas time, you know, and contact gets like, I'm really struggling at the moment. Is there any, you know, when is there a sign of this? My wife was with me in the living room, and I spent all day phoning from one to the other, to the other, to the other.
And that's exhausting.
She was getting frustrated, you know, she couldn't believe. And I thought, yeah, you can see now what I'm up against. Because sometimes she sort of, I understand it, sort of says, oh, you don't bother. But you bother, and then you try, and you don't get anywhere. And then the lady finally said to me, yeah, you are on it. I said, so it looks like it should be about July this year, 24. She said, oh, I'm afraid not. She said, that's a guideline. She said, I'm still dealing with people from 2022.
Wow.
And 2021 even. And so you're thinking, this is why it's coming to a point where you've got someone with, say, your story, who's waiting for that help, who will attempt suicide.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. And people do, like I said, you know, we know that through mental health issues, you know, and I think for me, and it was funny because when I do deliver training, you know, and I always love a Q&A at the end, because I think that is where a lot of the learning comes from as well. And I say, ask me anything, you know, I don't give a shit, just ask me anything, you know. And I'm very open and honest with them. And they, you know, the question that comes up, you know, is how's your oldest son? And I say, and then they say, you know, did you have counselling? And I said, no, I never. And then it sort of like goes deadpan quiet. And I said, listen, I said, I didn't want to speak to anybody other than somebody who's been through what I've been through. I said, because they don't understand. And I have found when we deliver our sessions through SUTDA, which is Standards of Domestic Abuse, for abused women, there is nothing like it than a survivor supporting a survivor. However far they're on their journey, because sometimes, you don't need to say anything. You haven't got to explain anything. They just get it. And for me, I think my therapy came from writing my book, The Devil at Home. But, and I have got a Christian faith as well. I mean, I swear like a trooper, so I'm repenting every Sunday for my potty mouth, especially when I'm talking about perpetrators of abuse and stuff. But, my faith comes from that. And I think as well, it's the attitude you have as well sometimes. I always say, your brain is so complex, and I follow Dr. Caroline Leaf, who's amazing. She's a neuroscientist. She's a Christian as well. And some of her stuff is so out your mental, I can't remember what it's called now. There's a book floating around you somewhere. So out your mental mess or something. But I mean, some of the stuff she talks about, and I do believe that sometimes you hold the remote control to your brain. And if you don't want something playing in there, you've got the ability to flick that channel. And I always say, go off. The self-care aspect of stuff is second to none. You've got to be able to self-regulate, do some grounding exercises, whether it's blowing bloody bubbles, which does work, by the way, getting that big weighted blanket and cradling yourself, sitting on the floor with your legs up on the sofa like that. They actually work, and I used to poo-poo it all, but, self-care, and I always say to people, it's all about me now. I don't give a shit. It's all about me. And if that makes me selfish, I don't give a shit. I've had 18 years of shit, and for me, I'm going to live my life the best that I can possibly live it, and I'm grabbing it with both hands, because life is like an aerosol spray. Then you're gone. So I want to leave a mark. I want to do the best, and my cup is always half full.
Yeah. And I think that we've got so many similarities, particularly like working in edge. I think that's what drew me to your story, that he was, in the hairdressers working, and I spent like 46. I think I'm hairdressing 46 years this year.
Wow.
So, and it's not in a shop anymore now. I obviously cut homeless people there and that, and but that is the best cure for my mental health. Going out, helping someone else. And it's a selfish thing, I guarantee, or I really believe it's the most selfish thing you can do, because it makes you feel so good. So if you're getting something that good out of it, how can it's not, like, we're not saints, but we need it. We need to go out, you need to make a difference. You realise as you get older, your sort of finality of life, and that you want it to be for a reason, and all of that stuff. So I really do understand where you're coming from on that.
Yeah, and it was funny because through the church a couple of years ago that we used to go to in Bristol, and Bristol have got a real high percentage of homelessness, and we used to feed the homeless with this guy Richard, who's a saint, absolute saint, and he started up Street Life. So we used to go there most Saturdays and feed the homeless, and there was the women that were on the streets that I spoke to were victims, survivors of domestic abuse and violence, had their kids taken off them by the system because they failed to protect them. Bearing in mind, you've got the perpetrator who's abusing, but nobody's looking at the perpetrator. It's the mum. The mum's fault for not protecting them. So it just don't make sense. When you listen to those stories of how they've ended up on the street, how they're misusing drugs, to numb the pain, it's sad.
I'm a couple of weeks ago, I was 18 years sober. So it's a big thing for me not to drink and take drugs. However, I completely understand when I'm meeting these guys and ladies, and hearing their stories and the conditions they're living in, I understand why they reach out for that comfort.
Yeah.
And they just want it, and it's a block. And that's what you find out when you're I'm an addict, and I find that it's nothing about, it's not. It's not like a nice little Chianti with dinner. It's like you want something to numb it.
Numb the pain.
Get rid of it, And obviously it makes things worse. It's not an answer. But there again, as you said, people helping people. when I go to one of these centres, and funny enough, we've got a fantastic one in Bristol. I've got to, call out to the In Hope Centre in Bristol. Amazing place. And it's just, the government ain't doing it. They say they're doing it. They put some money to it. And, I go around the whole of the UK and I go to all these different places and the real work is done by people helping people.
Yeah.
And I can walk in a place and instantly I click with someone.
Yeah.
I just sit with them or stand with them and immediately they click on one of them.
Yeah.
And that's that. And that's how you can do that as well, I'm sure, is that.
Yeah, there's no judgment, and I get a lot of emails as well from maybe mums whose daughters are in it. And I said, let me just tell you now, do not judge. Do not judge. You keep that door open, and just say to them, I know what you're going through. And if you can't see it yet, but I can see it. And I'm here, the door's always open, and sometimes you have got to be a bit strict because I had a friend whose daughter was in it, and she said, I cannot deal with this anymore because you're not prepared to make that move to leave. And she had to do that, say that I can't do it. So you cannot come back to the house. It was upsetting the brother as well. And in the end, she did come back. It took a while, but she did. And I said, always keep that channel of communication, because one day that light switch will go off in that victim survivor's head and boom. Yeah.
You wore me out.
We've only been on here 30, 40 minutes, haven't we? But honestly, I just
it's condensed, it's powerful stuff, you see. So it's especially if you've had any effects with it, I've been affected by it.
Yeah.
But you say, like, until someone you love gets cancer, you don't really take a lot of notice.
No. And you don't, and as well, by talking about it, and I can remember doing like a lunch and learn session years ago for Public Health Wales, and at the end of it, then there was two ladies come up and started speaking to me, and I said, "Oh, did you want to see me separately?" And they're like, "No, we share a table, we're colleagues, blah blah blah." And the one said, "Oh, shall I just want to say that I'm a survivor of abuse?" And the other one was like gobsmacked, and then the other one said, "Well, I'm actually going through it." But they never actually talked about it, which again is keeping it in the dark. We need to shine the light on it because, it needs to be brought out in the open, and off they went then to support each other. And like I said, there's nothing better than a survivor supporting, a victim survivor. And it's got to be done and it's got to be talked about. And that shame will always be at the feet of the perpetrator, not the victim. So I think the more we discuss it, the better it will be all round.
I had a wonderful podcast with a couple of ladies who, one's in Ireland, one's in America, and they set up Sheerhaven, which is training for hairdressers to spot the signs.
Yeah.
And they've made it mandatory now in America.
Wow.
In the state she's in, and she got this. Look them up; it's brilliant. And she managed to get this passed as legislation that it has to be part of the curriculum of hairdressing training.
Yeah. And rightly so, because sometimes I've done a session the other week around that very topic for hairdressers and beauticians, because when you find out where when a victim is really being isolated, normally the only place they can go to if they're lucky is the hairdresser and the dentist, along with the school and like shopping, and if they've got a job, if they're allowed to work, so it is vital that hairdressers know what to spot the signs and to have leaflets in shop as well.
Yeah. I remember years ago, I'm going back a long time, I was a young man then, and I'd done a lady's hair. I always remember her because it was like the car pulled up. I think it was probably like a Ford or something, and he, one of these geezers, he's got all the gear all over his car. He spent fortunes on his car, right? And she's sort of trying to hurry to pay. And he got out the car and he walked in, and she's trying to quickly, and I realised what she was doing. She's trying to show how much she spent. And he literally stood there, and he was saying, "Oh, the effing hell's this? How much you spending?" I went, "Hang on, mate," and he's, "Oh, I'll wait for you in the car," and he stormed off, like, and I was young, I weren't really aware.
Yeah.
But I sort of remember it. I thought, you've probably spent more on your car in a week than this woman
Yeah.
on her hair in 2 months, you know.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, and that's the things we can spot, you know, and
Yeah.
you know, all that thing. Oh, my husband don't like my hair short, and all that, you know. And it's like, well, how do you want it?
Yeah.
I was like a bit because they say, well, don't worry about him. How do you want it? What do you want? You
Yeah,
know.
but then they know there'll be a consequence if they have it how they want it, you know, when they get back home. And it's funny because if you Google Rachel Williams' employer's letter, my old boss, she wrote a letter to show the extent of Darren's control in the workplace. And I actually forgot that he used to do this. So first of all, even though I was a hairdresser, I was not allowed to cut a man's hair. That was forbidden, right?
Yeah.
And what she wrote in the letter was about Darren's control and saying that all the staff were fearful of him. Darren used to come in and check my appointment book, make random regular appearances that I forgot he'd done. He would literally rock up to the shop, walk in, say hello to everybody, then look over the reception desk, look in my column to see the names in there, and then say, tra, off he'd go. And then one day she put in the letter, she said, I was the only stylist available to cut this gent's hair who'd walked in for a haircut. And I'm bricking it now, Stu. And I'm like, Fran, I said, I can't cut this guy's hair. She goes, Rachel, you're going to have to. I mean, we're so busy. She goes, right, go down the back of the shop, go to the back station, and I'll get the juniors to circle around you. So I'm cutting this guy's hair while the juniors are circled around me to block any view from the street while I cut his hair, just in case Psycho Bill turned up to check the appointment book. And I do laugh because I deliver this on training. I say, I invented the Boris Johnson hairstyle that day. That guy left there looking like a frigging muppet. He looked like he'd been cut by an open fork, you know. I was like this, you know. But to think as an adult, you know, going to work to earn my crest, and I had even rules and regulations around that. And I wasn't allowed to dye my hair at all. Only one time we broke the tinting rule, and she put this in the letter as well, because it was picked up by the Metro. And she said, I had a few foils put in my fringe. I got home and was called all the sluts under the sun, and you look like all the other sluts and slags uptown. Sort it out tomorrow. And I had to tell her to bring tint back over it.
And that's that, and that's that misogynistic sort of narcissistic hatred of women. It's this real hatred of women, isn't it? That you know, that you don't know where it comes from.
No, and the thing is, I say as well, you know, men, decent men, and I say to the women, you know, and they say, no, you know, because I am remarried, you know, to an amazing guy. You know, I says to the ladies, I say, listen, they're not all cocks in tin foil. There's some knights in shining armour out there. I said, you cannot tar them all with the same brush because they're not. No. But what we need is the decent men in society to be calling the assholes out.
Yeah.
You know, those in the pub who are propped up against the bar saying, my missus, this, that, and the other with the missus jokes, you know, degrading and all that shit. To say, actually, I find that quite offensive. You're talking about your wife like that, you know, and call it out.
Yeah. Rightly so.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's you know, I've heard many stories over the years because we do a lot of work. It started off just at the homeless centre. Well, I started on my own in the homeless centre, just on my own, and then it spread, and you know, and now it's like women's refuges and all sorts of places, outside links, people coming out of prison, all sorts of. It's spread to, because it's just making people feel better about themselves. Whoever needs it, you know.
Yeah.
But in coming across women and their stories, and there's always the ones you take home, and I've said it many times. This lovely lady up, I won't say where it was actually, but she had escaped, and you know, and she was so nervous, this woman, and my sister spotted her, and she come and said, like, you know, can I get an haircut? And I spotted it, so I said to Belinda, I'll do this one, and she had really long, straggly hair. And I sort of suggested, if she really wants to change, I know, just a nice little bob, you know, can't go, Bob's your uncle. And she gradually opened up, and it was the first haircut she'd had in 7 years or 8 years, because he had complete control of money. He would give her money to go out and get him booze, but he'd know how much change he was expecting. So she couldn't have her hair done, she couldn't have her nails, nothing was done, you know, and it's bare, you know, clothes and everything. And it was this one day when he finally had a skinful, and he covered her in petrol. And he sat in a chair just with a lighter, and he was just flicking this lighter on and off. She had to stand there, you know. And when he finally went passed out or went asleep or whatever, she knew she was going to die. So she literally got whatever cash she could find in the house, went to the station, got on a train, went to another city, and that's where we found her.
Yeah.
And it was a lovely place we was at there. And they was just about to get her into a refuge, and she hadn't been there. I think she'd only been there that day. And that one's always stuck with me. I've got 1,000 of those stories, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But I don't know why that was the one, and just seeing that Frau, that's the difference. Like, just for that day, and she became herself again.
Yeah.
With the haircut, she became a woman again.
Yeah.
Rather than this object, you know.
Yeah. It is amazing what a haircut can do.
Oh yeah. We get it all the time, and sometimes a lot of time in the when we go to these places, you have to join us one day if you've got. Join us. Where are you based?
I'm in Wales, South Wales, just over the bridge.
Yeah. Listen, I'm desperate to get Wales going again. There's a wonderful place called the Huggard Centre in Cardiff.
Oh, the Huggard Centre, yeah, I used to collect stuff for them. Yeah.
Oh mate, I got one going there, but it sometimes they don't get kept up, and it's all about getting the right team leader who's going to keep it going. You know.
Yeah.
But if we get it going again, I will be on time.
I'll come down and lend my skills.
Yeah, because it is a wonderful thing, and it we have a couple of hour session once a month at a place, and then everyone loves it, and the people love having it done. And it's that thing I love that thing there about the voice program, which I don't know what it is, but it's giving people a voice, and it's making people seen who feel invisible, and and that's my drug of choice these days.
Yeah, it is. It is so rewarding, isn't it? And you don't do it for accolation. You do it because you want to do it, and it makes you feel better for doing it, to give something back.
Yeah, and it is highly seen, and you are seen a lot, and but it's when you're just doing it. There's no one there, and you're just doing it. This is why you're doing it anyway. Yeah. Otherwise, you would only do it when the cameras are about.
Exactly.
Yeah. And you get days. There's days sessions don't always go so well, and you think, "What bloody hell am I doing here?" On a nice warm day, but then someone comes through. And you just get someone,
and you don't know what that conversation will do for that person when they leave.
No.
What seed you planted.
Yeah. I'm so grateful for you to coming on. And it's so important for me to get your story out there. I know it's out there completely, but even if we get it to a few people who have not heard it, it's really important. And what we'll do when it goes on, we'll put all the
tag me in stuff so I can share it as well.
Yeah, we'll put all links and everything in. Yeah, and we'll do that. Well, I think I need a coffee after that.
Yeah, I need food.
Well, thank you so much. God, I'm not great at this. I've got to press.
You've got to laugh, mind. I do all this training, and they go, "Well, you set up." I goes, "No, you're gonna have to set it. Here's my computer. You crack on. Give me a clicker so I know what I'm doing." Yes,
I'll get the kids to sort that out. Anyway, it's lovely to have
you. And Stuart, when it goes out, let me know, and I'll share it as well. But stay in touch.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Cheers. Have a good day, Stuart.
Thank you.